As we begin going through a spiritual awakening, we can often feel really drained, really tired, because there's a load of new energy coming through the system, right? But also there's some things that we're doing that we're perhaps really stubborn with, that we're holding on to, and I only know this from my journey, that are keeping us feeling drained. I'm going to go into 5, 6 of these today, so if you're interested in realising perhaps why you might be feeling so drained, then this is the video for you. Most awakening journeys begin because we've had a momentum of years of sloppy thinking, of negative emotions, of negative self-critical talk, not believing that we're worthy of certain people, not believing that we can create the life that we want, wondering why on earth my life is like this and everybody else's seems fine. And it is in this negative thinking that I would say is the first thing that creates such an exhausted state of being inside of ourselves. I think it's the most easy one for me to pick up on because it's the most easy one for us to recognise in our own system. We know when the mind's going off on a momentum that's really quite negative, that isn't going to be good for our state of being. We can see when the mind, a thought might bubble up and we'll be there, I know where this thought's going. We can stop it, before the thought comes up. But this is the first thing that we would need to stop if we want to stop being so exhausted, is this constant momentum of negative thinking. Second thing for me is fighting against your emotions. Let's say fear comes up. Let's say depression comes up. Anxiety comes up. This dull ache in the chest, a heart-sinking moment. We can then fight the emotion, can't we? We can say, this shouldn't be here. Why am I like this? I don't like these emotions, and I guarantee to you, what you resist persists. It's like pouring petrol on the fire. But it's in this action we can feel, right? The emotions, they're negative though they are, they're powerful. There's a big energy force behind them, right? And this is your prana. But there's a big energy force, there's a big surge behind them. And there's also a big surge in you resisting them. Trying to strangle them down. I don't want to feel this way. Why is my life like this? And it's in this constant struggle that we really exhaust ourselves. They're both powerful intentions, aren't they? The negative emotion, powerful, right? And the negative reaction to that manifestation of energy inside of ourselves, the struggling with it, the why is my life like this, is also powerful. And we're giving all of our power to that. It's exhausting. No wonder we have to nap sometimes and just lay in bed and just let life do life through us, because it can get a bit much, but we're in control, right? We don't have to fight against the emotions. We can just let them be. They won't go on forever. It's in fighting against them that they do carry on for longer than they need to. 3, this is an odd one, but you might be doing too much pleasure seeking, and that can come in two further, we can prong this out into two separate entities. Pleasure seeking is fine, isn't it? So long as it's not constant. We always want to feel good. There's this motivating factor inside of us that's always going to try and do what feels best to us, yes? But sometimes that can lead to laziness, and overindulgence, right? We know it's no good to overindulge, because if we overindulge, let's say in food, which is the first avenue off from too much pleasure seeking that I want to talk about. If we overindulge in food, then the body requires a hell of a lot more energy to start processing that stuff. For example, if you eat food really late at night and then go to bed, you wake up more exhausted than when you went to bed. Why? Well, because we didn't get a full sleep. Why? Well, because the body was using all of its energy to process that food that we've overindulged in at probably the wrong time of the day for our body to be able to process that properly. Over pleasure seeking, though on the surface seems a really good thing to go for, is not a good thing to go for, especially if we want to conserve our energy, conserve our prana inside of ourselves. Now we can think of another thing that we might do seeking pleasure, and that's sexually. Now it's okay to do, nothing wrong with it, absolutely nothing wrong with it, don't have to limit your life. But if there's too much of that going on, if there's too much momentum behind that, we know that it's an exhausting factor. We know, for example, that the energy it takes our body to create semen is a hell of a lot more than the energy that it takes to create a hair follicle in the body. So if we're constantly needing to replenish that form of energy because we are outwardly seeking lots of pleasure in that way, then we are going to be exhausted. For men, it's definitely why at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon or a few hours afterwards that you do notice a dip in your energy levels. So this is a good form of energy to conserve. These are 5 things then that I found that might be exhausting you. Have a look at it. You know, be responsible with yourself. Maybe the things that I brought up are not relevant to you, and that's fine. But these are just 5 things that I've noticed from my journey, why I was feeling very exhausted through the process. There are a few things we can do to change this exhaustion, to flip the switch. And in time, because it does take consistency, you know, in time, as we really change our lifestyle, we can gain more energy by implementing one of 2 things. One, a whole foods, plant-based diet. And trust me, I'm not perfect. You know, sometimes I've just been on holiday and I've had one too many chicken dinners than I would really like to admit. So we don't have to be perfect, but in time, as we begin to really become more disciplined in having a whole foods plant-based diet, we notice that this is the food that will really nourish our system in the best way for us. If you have a look, because I've done this before, I was getting really bad blood pressure issues. And I had a blood test and had a look at my blood work, and my blood work was offensive. The cholesterol levels were way out of whack, and what it is that creates these cholesterol levels are foods that are high in saturated fat and animal proteins. They're not made for us. Really, we shouldn't be eating them, because let's look at it from a scientific perspective. When we kill an animal, it's very fearful. They're not stupid, they know what's coming, you know. They're energetically sensitive too. When they're about to die, they know, they get a really good idea. So fear seeps into their DNA. Now, that seems fine, right? But when that happens and we then eat that DNA, it turns into our DNA. There is no doubt. If you eat a banana or a piece of bread or a cow, over the day, that will then turn into your DNA. It's transmuted, isn't it, into the human form. It doesn't come out a cow. No, it comes out as you. It's expressing through your DNA. But because it's got fear in it, it's also bringing fear into your DNA. And it's why we can feel quite anxious sometimes. It's not the whole reason. Some of the other reasons that I've mentioned before, like negative thinking and fighting against the anxieties, it is also why it's exhausting us. But having this fear in the system is exhausting. Meat also takes longer for our body to digest, and therefore it's more of a mission for the body, and it's draining too, you know. And I'm not preaching anything, because I don't fully always stick to the vegan diet myself anyway. But so long as we're making good strides, you know, one step, baby steps in the right direction, then I feel like this will bring up the energy levels for sure. I know it in my life anyway, with the vegan food, with the plant-based whole foods diet that I stick to most of the time. It is an energizing diet to have. Finally, something that will really increase your energy levels is sadhana. Sadhana just means your daily spiritual practice to bring about the highest amount of aliveness, the highest amount of intensity of energy in the system. Sometimes it makes me so happy, the sadhana that I do. I just feel like I could do a backflip off of a 7-story building in joy and bliss and ecstasy, just because sadhana really does boost your mood. It boosts your energy levels. It brings up the intensity of prana in one's system. If you don't have any sadhana, you're more than welcome to sign up down below for the free breathing practice or the one-to-one coaching. The one-to-one coaching isn't free, but the application form is free for you to apply if you'd like to. The breathing practice, nonetheless, the free one, will bring about an aliveness in the system. It's instant, it's impactful, it works like that. Give it a go if you'd like. Of course, as well, if you're going through an awakening experience and you don't really know what's going on with you and you'd like a support network of like-minded individuals, then I've created a group on Facebook down below. There's probably nearly 1,000 members in there now. Don't actually know, there may not be, but probably. And it's a very great group of people. The journey in itself can be draining, yes, because it's totally new for us. And we have this insistence sometimes to blame the Kundalini, to not take responsibility for why we're feeling drained. And in taking responsibility and not putting the blame external, oh it's the Kundalini's fault, oh it's the spiritual awakening's fault for why I feel this way. In seeing and taking some self-responsibility, I've noticed these 5 things that I've mentioned inside of myself. You may notice them too. You probably will notice them too. It's in being self-responsible about our health, about our awakening, about the food we're eating, about the energy we're giving off, about the energy that we're taking in, about the way that we're treating ourselves with our minds. It's in these things, in becoming self-responsible in these things, that our energy levels rise, yes, but also our potential for sickness decreases. Our life can just begin to beautifully flower in a way that wouldn't have before, because we were too busy and too caught up in blaming other people for the reasons as to why we are the way we are. I hope this video helps. I have nothing more to say, so have a lovely evening.